A lot of people get lured into VOC Energy Trust because of that 11% dividend, but they don't realize they're buying into a company that is legally required to go out of business. Since it started, this stock has lost over 80% of its value. I've owned it for 3 years and I've watched it fail firsthand. In this video, I'm going to show you why this isn't an investment and why it's just a slow way to lose your money. But to be clear, I am not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing my personal experience and the numbers so you can make your own decisions. And with that, let's dive in. Alright, so back in January, I called this stock out for being a bad deal. Now, the way that I view this stock is as a dividend trap. There's no actual growth in the stock. If you look at it, it's been trending downwards in value. Since then, the price saw a tiny bump because of the war in Iran, but don't let a temporary headline distract you from the facts. The stock is still on a path to zero. I first bought this in 2022 when I was just chasing high dividends without looking at the fine print. Today, I'm taking you through the company structure, the math behind the decay, and the actual losses sitting in my account. Let's start off with what VOC Energy Trust actually is, because it isn't a traditional oil company. Most people assume that they're buying a company that drills for oil and grows over time. That's not the case here. VOC is a passive statutory trust based out of Houston. They don't own the drilling equipment and they don't manage the wells. Instead, they just hold the right to 80% of the net profits from specific oil and gas properties in Kansas and Texas. Think of it like a landlord who doesn't own the building but just has a contract to collect 80% of the rent until the building is eventually torn down. The trust was listed back in 2011 and the history has been a disaster. Since its IPO, it's lost about 86% of its value. Why? Because the business model is designed to end. Unlike a normal company that tries to find new oil to replace what they sell, VOC is just milking old, mature wells as that oil runs out and the value of the stock naturally decays. That brings us to the death date. VOC has a termination clause on December 31st, 2030, or once they hit a certain production limit, whichever comes first. The trust will be liquidated, paid out, and delisted. It's a ticking clock. Currently, the stock's value is tied directly to the price of oil at the pump. When oil prices spiked recently due to the conflict in Iran, VOC saw a tiny jump in price and a slight increase in its dividend to 9.5 cents. But you have to ask yourself, is a 9-cent dividend worth holding an asset that has a zero chance of ever reaching the IPO price again? The math just doesn't add up. You're getting paid a small amount of your own money back while the underlying price slowly rots away. Now you might be thinking, surely there has to be a silver lining here. Well, let's look at my account and see if we can find it, because I didn't just read about this stock, I bought it. Back in February 2022, I was a young and dumb investor. I only hunted for cheap stock prices with juicy dividends, and I didn't look any further. I bought 26 shares at an average price of $5.04. Today, I am down over 31%. That's $41 of my hard-earned money just gone. It's a small amount of money, but it's a massive lesson. The stock has no growth, and it was a terrible decision. Now, the pros that everyone talks about is the dividend. They just announced a payout of 9 cents, but let's be real, that's a joke. I watch my payments get cut while the stock price crashes. It feels like the company is handing me a nickel while they pick $10 out of my back pocket. The con isn't just that the stock price goes down, it's that you're fighting a losing battle against time. As we get closer to that 2030 finish line, the market knows the stock is headed to zero. You're essentially betting that oil prices will stay high enough to offset the fact that the company is literally evaporating. So where does that leave me? Honestly, I'm not planning on being a long-time passenger on this sinking ship. I'm currently holding my 26 shares, but I'm just waiting for a right window to get out. With the recent tension in Iran pushing oil prices up, we've seen a small move in the stock, and I'm watching that very closely. My plan is to wait a bit more of a climb to soften the blow of that 31% loss, and then I'm selling. I realize that chasing a high yield in a dying trust isn't a winning strategy for me. I'm sharing my experience and my exit plan plan so you can see the reality of how these terminal stocks play out. But what you decide to do with your own portfolio is your call. For me, I'm just looking for the exit sign. Now, looking back at my previous video, I called this a dividend trap in January for a reason. Now, the way that I view this stock is as a dividend trap. Now, where do I see this by 2030? I don't think it's going to reach the price of the IPO. There will have to be something crazy that will happen in order for those prices to spike and the production of oil to be more expensive. Since then, the only thing keeping this stock alive was a war in Iran that pushed the oil prices to another high. Without that conflict, we'd probably be looking at an even deeper loss. But a war bump isn't a recovery, it's an opportunity. I'm not sticking around to see what happens when the dust settles. I'm waiting for one more small climb, and then I'm selling my 26 shares and closing this chapter for good. But I want to hear what you guys think. Am I wrong about VOC? Drop your thoughts down in the comments because I do read all of them. And if you're trying to get started investing and build out your portfolio, check out the links I have below. If you sign up for Robinhood using my link, you can get a free stock worth between $5 and $200 just for opening an account. And if you use my Coinbase link, you'll get $10 in free Bitcoin after your first trade of $5 or more. And it also helps support the channel. And with that, if you got any value out of this, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.